Thank you for joining us today. Hello and welcome to From Lansing with Love. I'm your host, State Representative Leslie Love. Every month we discuss a different topic with interesting guests. I hope you will find this program both informative and insightful. Today's show will interest anyone who owns a car, and we'll talk about the roads those cars drive on and what it takes to maintain those roads. As you know, in late 2015, the governor signed into law a $1.2 billion road funding package that will hike fuel taxes and registration fees and also take $600 million a year from the state's general fund to fix and maintain Michigan's roads and bridges. About 80% of Michigan's roads were in good or fair condition last year. But despite the influx of funds, that number is expected to fall just over 70% this year. In fact, over the next decade, more than 60% of the state-maintained roads will be rated in poor condition. My guest today is Kirk Steudle, the Director of Michigan Department of Transportation. As Director, Mr. Steudle oversees MDOT's more than $4 billion budget and 2,500 employees who are responsible for the construction, maintenance, operation of nearly 10,000 miles of state highways and more than 4,000 state highway bridges. He also oversees administration of a variety of multimodal transportation programs and projects that range from aviation to the Zilwaukee Bridge. Mr. Steudle is a registered professional engineer who began his career at MDOT in 1987 to rise through the ranks to serve as State Transportation Director under two governors. So please thank you for coming and welcome, Mr. Steudle.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to be here. It's great to be on your show.
Yes, so you've been around for a while in this industry. The unique opportunity to serve under two governors. I wonder what that's like. But tell us about your foray into this transportation life and what you're doing with the 21st Century Commission's report.
Sure. So as you alluded to there's a lot in transportation. The biggest thing that people think about when they think about MDOT, they think about orange barrels, or they think about snowplows, or they think about potholes. Right? And depending on the type of year or the time of year, that's how I usually get introduced as one of those three. But I can tell you, I can't fix the pothole without having an orange barrel. And we all know that we need the snowplow in the middle of winter. You know, interestingly enough about snowplows, we did an economic impact study a couple years ago that said, well, what would happen if all the roads in Michigan were impassable due to snow? Right? Because right now we do a pretty good job of clearing snow, and the impact was $251 million a day to the economy. So you'll notice when it snows and we get 6 or 8 inches, what happens the next morning? We get up and we go to work. That doesn't happen in other states because in Michigan we figured out we know how to plow snow, whether it's a local city or the county or the state. It's all about mobility. So that's one piece. But go ahead.
That's a good point, Kirk. We're really great at removing snow, and I know when I commute up to Lansing, that 96 gets cleared pretty quickly, and they get the sod out on the roads. But we still have issues with our roads, and according to the 21st Century report, we're expected to have poorer roads instead of better roads, even though we just passed this $2.5 billion budget. Right. So why is that?
Right. So I was part of the 21st Century Infrastructure Commission, along with a whole variety of other state departments, but more so some private industry folks as well. And they really took a deep dive into all of the information, all the asset management plans that we have and other states have, and said, what is this really going to look like going into the future? And even when we go back to the signing of the bill, all the leaders that were on the stage at the time said this is a good start. It's not going to solve the problem. And what the commission report said was, yeah, it was a good start. It's helping, but it's not going to solve the problem. And in fact, we need a significant increase in all of the other infrastructure. So roads and bridges is one part of it, but there's stormwaters, there's wastewater, there's sewer, there's electric grid, there's communications, and that's all rolled into the infrastructure report, because it's not just roads and bridges, although roads and bridges is a very, very, very big piece of that report and the dollar amount needed. But all of the projections have showed, look, we're still deteriorating. And if you just look at the gas tax and how it's come in, it peaked from revenue in about 2004. And since 2004, in real dollars, the numbers are going down in gas tax. That's because our cars get better fuel economy, we've changed the way we've driven, and when your revenue is based on how many gallons of fuel is sold, you end up with less revenue, and that's what's causing that problem. So when we should be increasing, we're actually decreasing the amount of money over the last 10, 12 years that's been going into our road system. And that's all of the 120,000 miles of roads in Michigan, not just the 10,000 state trunk lines.
Right. So a lot of people that would watch this show would say, why can't you just fix these roads already? You know, my registration fees went up.
That's right.
The gas prices, well, we kind of don't feel them as badly as we did a few years ago. Our gas prices are still lower than even 4 years ago, when I think they almost peaked at $4.
That's right.
And so we fixed the roads already.
Right.
And in your comments, you said there's more revenue being invested, but you know it's a little bit different because of the way we're driving, how cars are constructed now. So what will it take? How much money do we need, and where does the money come from, do you think? Do we need to create new revenue?
You know, so the commission report said in total we need about $4 billion annual investment in infrastructure. Again, all of those multiple categories, and the roadside was a little less than $2 billion, about half of that. So then, legitimate question, well, where does that all come from? Well, the report was very specific. It said this doesn't all come from the state. There has to be multiple levels. So what the report says, we need more investment at the federal level. We do need more money at the state level, but we also need options at the local level so that local roads can be paid for with local funds as well. We all know roads that, you know, only us and our neighbors drive on, and people that live 200 miles away will never drive on that road. And just likewise, we're probably not going to drive on a road near them. So there's those three levels, but then there's also investment from the private side. Are there ways that we can pull additional revenue in? And when you talk about all of those infrastructure pieces, there's water rates, there's communications services, and then there is electricity rates. So they all have different. It's not like this is all coming from gas tax dollars.
What will it take to pay for them once and for all? Do we need to generate some new revenue? What do you say to that?
So I think in the end we are going to have to look for all of the available sources and multiple levels. But to your specific question, we didn't get to this condition overnight. So we got local roads that have been underfunded for many, many, many years. So they're not going to magically turn around and be fixed all overnight. So it's going to take a very concerted effort from all levels of government in the state, city, county, and the state, focusing on their asset management plans, on their roadways, to really bring those up to a state of good repair. But in many cases, we use multiple repairs. In some cases, people will see an orange barrel and it's only out there for a day or two, and they think we fixed the road for 30 years, when in fact all we've done is a preventative maintenance treatment, which is like changing the oil in your car. So we're keeping a good road in good condition. That's got to be part of it. You can't focus on just the bad roads, because more good roads will fall into fair and poor than you can spend all your money. So it's a balanced approach, and you're going to see that across the state.
So when is the time when there's repair, replace, and maintain, and maybe repairing and maintaining are kind of the same, but when is it time to just completely tear it up and do something new versus patching? Because we got a lot of patchwork across the state.
We do, and it's important to note that those cost significantly different. So if you do a repair, if you do like crack sealing on a good road, you can spend $1 and you can keep a good road in good condition. If you do a resurfacing, means the base is still in good condition, you can get another 10 to 12 years of life out of that, and that is probably $3 to $4. And if you're at a point where there's nothing left, the base is shot, all the concrete shot, it all has to come out, you got to redo the sewers, that's going to cost in the realm of probably $10. So just relative range there, it's going to cost significantly more. So if you take all the money and say just do reconstructions, you're going to use all the money doing the reconstructions, but you're going to have all these other roads that were in good condition that you could have changed the oil on the engine, and the engine's going to fall apart. So you have to take it as a balanced approach. There will be some that have some midterm repairs, because that's how you have to manage a whole system of roadways that are in varying stages and in varying ages.
Okay. So what should drivers expect when there is repair work done? How long will that repair work last? If you come and patch a road up or do a little portion of it, what's the expected lifespan? I know if you do a complete reconstruction, like on a portion of 96 that was done, I imagine that's a little
Those are long,
longer.
yeah, those
But
are
when you're
long
doing
terms.
kind of repair maintenance, what's the expectancy of that to work? Or we're just going to see that every year the guys that come out with the asphalt?
So again, it's based on what are they doing. If it's a good road and they're just like crack sealing it, that's intended to last about 3 to 5 years. That's it. It's like changing the oil for 3,000 miles. If it's a complete overlay where we do lots of overlay, a real deep section, that's probably going to get us 8 to 12 years. It depends on the amount of traffic and the type of traffic that's on it. And if sometimes we do just a one course, it may be on a local street where they'll come out and they take off just the top inch and put 2 inches back on. And that just provides a better riding surface, but that's likely to last maybe 5 years. It's not going to be a long one, but remember, we also paid for a one course overlay. We paid for just that surface. We didn't pay to reconstruct all of it. So it's trying to get the smoothest ride for the best value for the dollars that you invest.
Okay. So I don't know if you have enough time to answer this question, but I want to know how does the state create the priority list? What roads get funded first, second, or third?
Right. That's a great question. I get that question a lot, and I can tell you, you have to look from the MDOT perspective. You have to look across the state, and you got to look at about a 10-year window. And the funding to each region of the state generally follows the population. So Southeast Michigan, 40% of the population, it's about 40% of the money. And then once we get it in the region, if we talk about just the MDOT side, then we have engineers that are looking at all of this technical data about the road. What's its remaining service life? What does that road need at that particular time? And then they say, all right, if it's a total reconstruction, like you said, we're going to rip it out like I-96, it really doesn't matter if it's this year, next year, the year after, it's going to cost the same amount of money. One of those that's in kind of its midlife crisis where we've got to get to it within a year or two or it's going to turn into poor, that one is pretty time critical. So the engineers say, okay, we have to get this one in 2018, 17 or 18 because it's going to fall into poor if we don't do something now. So it's a bit of a balancing act of how much money can you spend to keep them in good condition, how much do you need to spend in the midlife, and then which portion do we reconstruct completely. And in total across the state, we spend about 3 to 4% of our funds on total reconstructions of miles of the network.
So, Kurt, I understand in our state, we are the model for the way we collect data and the asset management that we have of our roads and bridges. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then, do we have warranties on these roads? What is the expectation? I know we just passed the transportation bill that did put warranties. Did we not have that before, and why not? And lastly, what about the materials we're using on our roads and bridges? Are we looking at new materials and technology to maintain those roads longer?
Well, there's a lot wrapped up in that question,
Right.
so and I'm going to be kind of concise here. So the first one about materials, we'll go in back order, right? So the materials, we're continually evolving the materials that we use. So the concrete that we use is not the same concrete mix that we used 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and the same thing on the asphalt side. We're very involved in national consortiums about the latest and greatest and what's the most advanced materials to use. So it's not something that we just invent in Michigan. We work with all the other states to make sure that materials that we're using are the state of the art and the longest lasting that we can get to. And that feeds into the warranty program. So we've had warranties in Michigan since 2000. In fact, we have the most warranties of any state in the country. In fact, there's a lot of states, over half, that have no warranties. They take a different approach to this. We have taken the approach of warranties. The second state even close to us is Florida, and they've got about half as many as we do. And those warranties are to make sure that the contractor gave us what we asked them to give us. It's not a performance warranty where they said, like you get on your washing machine. We've said, this is how we want the road built. They said, okay, we will guarantee and warrant that what you asked for is what we gave you, and it should last that life. And we have some responsibility because we design it. We say, this is the parameters we want in there. So short answer is yes, we have a lot of warranties, and we some of them are 3 years, some of them are 5 years, and we hold those contractors accountable to come back and make the repairs. if it's their fault. In some cases, it may have been the design's fault. It wasn't their fault. So there's an analysis of that. And then the first piece you asked about was asset management. So when the gas tax was last raised in 1997, there was an additional bill that went through that created the Transportation Asset Management Council, which was to bring all the jurisdictions, 600 jurisdictions, under one council, so that we rated roads the same and we looked at them the same, and we came up with a strategic plan of how to go after reconstructing and getting the best bang for the buck. That's where this mix of fixes I talked about, how we blend these, that's where it came from. And it's also done in a number of countries. In fact, that's one of the things that the 21st Century Infrastructure Commission looked at was, how do we do it here? And then what do they do in New Zealand, Australia, Ontario, London, and they actually Skyped the guy in from London about what they do. And what they found was we really do have some of the state-of-the-art practices for asset management. How do we manage? We don't just fix the worst road first. That's been proven across the globe to not work. So that gets back to that. We have some midlife repairs, and we have some just general preventative maintenance repairs, like changing the oil in the car. So very detailed subject there. We could spend a whole half an hour talking about just that, and I'm sure it would cause most of your viewers to go to sleep.
No, but I find transportation and infrastructure very exciting, and we haven't even touched on infrastructure very much today. So a lot of times I think what people see, they see the road, they feel the pothole, and you know when your tire's blown. But what we don't really talk about, and another time maybe I'll have you back, we can talk about what's under the road, the infrastructure. And infrastructure, whether it's rainwater runoff or electrical lines, broadband, all of the other things are pipes and that go on the line. So I think it's a great conversation, and no matter if you're in Tokyo or you're in Toledo or Pontiac, there's roads and infrastructure, and it all affects us. And you really feel it when there is the interceptor collapse that happened, or if it's a pothole. So we will all at some point need to really invest in, I think as a state, in our transportation and infrastructure. But I want to thank you, Mr. Steudle, from Michigan Department of Transportation, and also the 21st Century Infrastructure Committee's report, which I found very enlightening, all 188 pages. And so I thank you. I think it's a pretty big deal that you're here today, and I really appreciate you coming on from Lansing with Love. And maybe we can have you back soon.
Great. My pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. Good to see you. All right. And take a short break, and we'll be right back after this.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Welcome back to From Lansing with Love. I'd like to thank my guest again, Kirk Steudle, the Director of Michigan Department of Transportation. And they've been so kind to provide us with a video to give us information on flex roads in Michigan. So take a look.
Flex route is an attempt to squeeze more capacity out of our existing infrastructure. Instead of widening every road, what we're trying to do is take advantage of the space in the middle, the extra shoulder that's there, and use that during those peak volume times. Many places in the country it's called active traffic management. And if you just think about it in that way, it's actively using the capacity you have to assign a lane when it's really busy. And when it's not really busy, then you put traffic in those normal lanes. So a morning commuter that would come up on a normal congested area on US 23 will find a big arrow over the shoulder, which is their symbol to use that lane and continue south. Later in the day, you drive through that same section of roadway and there'll be a big X over the top of that lane, which means you can't drive on there then. When you have an incident that closes one of the lanes, you now have the capacity to maintain 2 lanes of traffic through that area. By using the gantries and the technology that's there, you can divert traffic onto that shoulder and onto the other lane to actually maintain traffic around all of that incident, maybe fire trucks or EMS, what happens to be there, and you can continue to move traffic from an overall operations perspective.
I think US 23 corridor is the perfect place to try this innovation. It's directional traffic, where in the morning, people going into Ann Arbor, southbound is congested, northbound there's a lot of capacity. And then in the evening, people coming out of Ann Arbor, it's congested and southbound has capacity. So if you really look at it that way, you don't really need a permanent third lane there for 24/7 hour traffic. That's really not there. It's mostly AM peak hour and PM peak hour traffic.
So while we're starting with US 23, the next real logical application for this is Interstate 96 from Brighton in towards Novi. That already has a big wide shoulder from Kent Lake already into 275. The bridges are already combined. I think that's the next natural progression for where this goes. Another obvious place could be 131 north and south of Grand Rapids. I think that's got rush hour traffic, morning, afternoon, probably very similar to US 23. That could potentially be a candidate as we go forward and evaluate this.
We have a lot of needs out there and not enough resources to take care of them. So we have to do things a little more smarter. For instance, the US 23 corridor, if we were to try and put a third lane out there, you're going to have to buy a lot of right-of-way, it costs a lot of money. So managing congestion, you find an efficient way to use the existing system or infrastructure and try and see how you can modify things to make it work for you.
Flex routes, and particularly this piece that is going forward on US 23, fits with our overall ITS strategy and connected and automated vehicles because it's providing the communications backbone through that project all up and down 23 that will enable the roadside units to transmit and receive information from the cars that are going by it. So they'll share information back and forth. This area of US 23 doesn't have any of that technology now, and this project also will dovetail on all of that work that's happening in Ann Arbor with M-City, at Willow Run, with the smart corridors that are all in Southeast Michigan. At the end of the day, Flex Route is about providing the opportunity for the motorist to spend less time in traffic and more time home with their family.
You may have noticed all the new lighting around the city of Detroit, not only on our highways, but on our city streets. This is a result of a private-public partnership, and the Michigan Department of Transportation has provided us a video on that. So let's take a look.
On January 23rd, Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley joined MDOT Director Kirk Steudle and DTE Vice President of Business Planning and Development Irene Dimitri for a ceremony honoring MDOT's commitment to safety by installing LED lights on Metro Detroit freeways. As part of DTE's Energy Efficiency Business Program, Ms. Dimitri handed over a check to the Michigan Department of Transportation for $1 million. The funds will go into MDOT's maintenance program.
Well, our energy efficiency programs are basically to incent and encourage and motivate and educate customers, whether they're residential or business customers, to invest in more energy efficient equipment, which is exactly what MDOT did by installing about 13,000 LED lights on the freeways. By doing so, you're going to save money on an ongoing basis. So the check that we gave you today, $1 million, is to help defray the upfront costs so you can make that investment.
By the end of 2013, roughly 70% of the 15,000 lights on Metro Detroit freeways were operating. Most of the outages were due to outdated and failing infrastructure. MDOT knew the fastest and most efficient way to get the lights working was to enter into a private-public partnership.
It allowed the progress to be made in a much more rapid fashion. So we get safer, brighter streets that are more efficient and cheaper to operate right away. So you put all that stuff together, and what a benefit to the taxpayer.
But to be truly innovative, that in new ways has to result in something that is a desired outcome. And in this particular case, we wanted more out of the system than what we had. That's what this public-private partnership has done.
In fall of 2015, MDOT began the first year of a public-private partnership to install energy-efficient LED lights on the freeways in Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne counties. In the first 12 months, more than 12,800 lights had been converted or completely replaced, resulting in an expected energy usage reduction of 65%. The reduction in energy consumption not only saves money, it's a positive step for the environment.
So now all of those lights are LEDs. They're much more energy efficient, which we expect will lead to an annual energy savings of about $2 million of transportation funding that will roll right back into our maintenance budget.
As a result of the conversion to LED lights, MDOT is making the freeways safer. Well-lit freeways offer the motoring public better safety and security. A brighter, safer commute in Metro Detroit can be summed up in 2 words: innovation and efficiency.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today. I'd like to once again thank my guest, Kirk Steudle, the director of MDOT, for joining us. And thanks to all of you for watching. If you have an idea for a show or you're interested in being a guest on the show, please contact my office, and that contact information will be on the screen. Until next time, be good to yourself and each other, and with that, we're all clear and out of here.